So a question came up recently about Padmasambhava and his life stories. And the question really revolved around the different versions of his life story. So this is really quite easy to deal with because that is religious history. And we do not have really a conflict or a problem with art history and with the physical paintings, murals that we can identify. So yes, there's a tremendous amount of art depicting the life story of Padmasambhava, and we'll leave murals aside for the moment, but just talking about scroll work art, we have Padmasambhava's life story either in a single composition, generally, or in a set of 9 paintings. And then the 9 paintings depict the generic Padmasambhava at the center, and then his 8 manifestations, or 8 different forms that he appears in, that also reflect 8 important narratives in his life story. Now, what is the source of this? The source of this is really the Padma Kathang. Padma Kathang is a revealed treasure by Orgyan Lingpa, and he lived, I think, 1323 to 1360, so he's a 14th century person. And the majority, if not all, but the majority of painting sets and most likely murals that we will find will be this Orgyan Lingpa's. Now, there are other biographies. Some are shorter of Padmasambhava, but that's not really the issue here. Okay, also what we can have is murals and painting sets where there is no central figure. It's just running continuous narrative with vignettes, life story vignettes. So we can have 2 different kinds of painting sets with the central figure, but then without the central figure. Now, the issue about the different stories of Padmasambhava's life. Now, this question arises from the actual historical Padmasambhava. Was he real or was he mythological? Was he a creation? Is it based on some fact? Is the entire story true? Now, what we then have to look at is we really have to look at religious studies, religious context here. So, to understand the variations in the life stories of Padmasambhava, we need to look at the Dunhuang manuscripts, first of all. Then we have to look at the early Tibetan references and colophons, the author statement at the end of a translated text or a written text, authored text. Then we have what's called the Bashe, the Testament of Ba, and for references of Padmasambhava and his life story. Then we have to look at the Buddhist Kama texts, what we have of that. And again, this is going to be this is going to be actually 13th century with Nyingma Oser, and then with Guru Choang. And then we have Orgyan Lingpa in the 14th century. So these are going to be where we find some references to Kama text, to oral tradition, and then looking at revealed treasure, Terma texts. Then we need to look at the Blue Annals of Golotsawa, and because in there we can also find, I believe, a reference to Padmasambhava being the brother-in-law of Shanti Rakshita, and they traveled to Tibet from the area of Kanchipuram on the extreme lower east coast of India, down towards the Amaravati, great Amaravati Stupa. So that's Blue Annals. And then we also have the life story of Padmasambhava based on the Bun religion and the revelations of Dorje Lingpa, again from, I think, roughly the 13th, 14th century. And so this is where we get confusions about the life story of Padmasambhava. And then we also have in Dujam Rinpoche's history of the Nyingma religion, history of the Nyingma school, we have even Dujam Dujin Rinpoche says in there that Padmasambhava actually only, he came to Tibet, but he spent 3 years in general with the creation of Samye Monastery with Shanti Rakshita. And he had a 3-year period in Tibet, after which he was invisible for the next 60, 70 years. And he could only be seen by his 25 disciples and some others possibly. So this also creates some confusion. And then we have some Gelugpa authors who say that then there was a second Padmasambhava came to Tibet after the first Padmasambhava. He came relatively early, or like very immediately after, but he was not considered a good person and caused a lot of upheaval. And so this creates more confusion about the life story of Padmasambhava. So those are the confusions which are religious context. In terms of art, we are primarily looking at paintings that are based on the Padma Kathang. So, and they're relatively consistent. It's just a question of more or less narratives from this long biography of Padmasambhava. More or less narratives are placed within the painting sets or murals. So we'll leave it there. You can press like, you can subscribe, you can join HAR on Patreon, and you can also make a donation on the homepage of Himalayan Art Resources.